Hello everyone, I'm your host for the day. My name is Ashutosh and I take care of growth at this tribe. So before I start, I'll give a quick intro in general about other things. So once again, everyone, a warm and formal welcome to this fireside chat with Mukesh Singh Rajput on how to build a QA team from scratch. And Mukesh has built quite a few. We're doing this in collaboration with Browser Stack, to whom I want to give a huge shout out. They're our premier sponsor for all our conferences and exclusive sponsor for all our community events. Due to companies like Browser Stack that we're able to do so many such events. We've been doing such AMA sessions every week on a Wednesday now. And it's due to companies like Browser Stack that we're able to do at such a scale. With that, coming to Mukesh, Mukesh is seasoned testing professional. He has worked with some of, again, India's marquee companies like IBBO, PayU. He had the chance of building the entire QA team from scratch at Midtrans, uh, which was later acquired by Gojek, where again he was the head of QA. Currently director of QA at Aspire. So we thought it's going to be a fitting topic for Mukesh on how to build QA teams from scratch. So with that, let me call Mukesh on stage now. Hi Mukesh, you're on stage.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining. So let me quickly introduce myself. My full name is Mukesh, as Ashutosh already shared. My full name is Mukesh Singh Rajput. I have overall around 12 years of experience. I started my journey from AU and basically IBBO and then AU. And then later I moved to Midtrans, which is payment gateway company in Indonesia. And thereafter Gojek, which is again a company in I was there for almost 5 years. After that, I joined Aspire, which is a fintech organization in Singapore. Yeah, so that's pretty much about me.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, let's get to the business straightforward directly. So, folks, we will have this as a fireside chat session, right? Okay. So, if you have any questions, you can put in the Q&A tab, and I'll take them up at the right time. And I'll keep asking the big related questions in the meanwhile. So, please feel free to use the Q&A tab. Let's pick Mukesh's brain as much as possible, and in terms of how he has built teams at various companies he has worked for. Okay. Mukesh, my first question is what inspired you to pursue a career in QA and testing? What
Hmm.
Why did you start your career as in QA and testing?
Okay, so I think this is an interesting story. So I basically, like I said, I started my career with IBBO Group. So at first, because I joined there as a fresher, I didn't have choice, like option to choose whether I can go to dev or I can go to QA. So I was by default assigned to QA, and I became part of QA team. Now talking about my experience there in the early stage, right? So basically, in college, when I was in college, I was actually learning and doing coding. But in that company, because I was fresher and put in manual team, so I was kind of acting as a support guy. Okay, because even though I was tagged in QA team, but I was doing, I was just migrating their tests and rewriting them in Excel sheet and different formats. And this work was being done for almost 3 to 4 years. And I was not even doing proper manual testing. It was just writing test cases, and which got me frustrated. Okay, so in the start of career, within 3 or 4 months, I got frustrated. I thought this is not for me, and I should consider moving to dev team. But fortunately, one of my leader who was there, I consulted with him. Because I was fresher, I was not aware of what you should talk with your leaders, you should not. So I told him clearly that I don't like this job. I want to move to dev team. And then he told me that there are other things to clear because right now you are not working on them, so maybe you are not aware. Then he explained me about how manual testing is done and how basically automation is done. So manual, because I was still having brief information, but automation was like magic for me because at that point of time, I saw first time like, okay, we can write code and browsers will open automatically. So it was like magic to me that I don't have to manually execute anything on browser. It will directly be done by code. So that was the trigger point for me that no, I want to be here because I can do coding here and as well as I can see this magic and this is helpful for me. So that was I will say, trigger point for me to love this QA role and continue in QA role. Yep.
Got it. Very interesting. Uh, okay. Now, coming to the question around this theme, right? Okay.
Hmm.
How do you build a team? Okay. So let's say you are now told, let's do a role play kind of thing. Like you're told by the engineering head now that we're trying to build the QA team. You'll be the first hire. You join that company.
Right.
What are the first steps you will take when you are tasked to build a QA team from scratch?
Hmm. I mean, there's no straightforward answer, so I will say whatever I did from my
Yeah,
experience. Okay.
that help. Yeah.
So first and foremost, from what I did was, because I was just new, I was first person in that team, in that whole company, and there was no QA, so people were not even aware of what typically QA brings value. Okay. So first thing for me when I joined company was to get as much as product knowledge I can get, so that I understand the business, I understand how this company is working, and what are the critical things here. Because when I will get the product knowledge, then only I will be able to understand what are the critical teams or projects where I should support. And this will also help me to understand what type of people I should hire, because depending on domain we should hire domain specific experienced people. So first thing was, for at least let's say 1 month or so, I tried to deep dive and understand all the products, all the features we have. And then parallelly, I try to identify what are the core modules or teams which are critical right now. When I say critical, it means which those are critical to business, and we are getting a lot of, let's say, production bugs into them, so that uh, I can at least pick one topic, one feature or one module to start with, instead of worrying about whole product. Because if from day one I start worrying about whole product and start integrating to a team, then it will not work, because I'm just one person, so I cannot do all the work. So because this was fintech company, so I find out that the name, I can take the name, right? So the name of that product was Snap. It was basically core payment gateway phase. Okay. That we decided that this is the first module where we should actually add QA members, or we should start testing. So I was the first person who started working on this. So why this is important to pick only one module or one feature instead of worrying all? Because first thing, like I said in the starting, not everyone understand what value QA can bring. So maybe if you pinpoint one feature or one team, let's say, and you start working as a QA there, then you can basically show the results to people. Like for example, in that let's say payment gateway page, earlier, let's say there were, let's say, 50 bugs average on per month, right? And then I started testing on this, then maybe this reduced to, let's say, 20% further. So I can go and showcase this achievement to, let's say, other stakeholders and people, and showcase the positivity QA team brings. When we have data to showcase, right, then it's very easy to get onboarding of, let's say, leadership. So I used this philosophy that I first finalized one team and started acting as a QA there. Now, because we are talking about building whole team, not just about team, right? So once you identify one critical team, the next job for you should be like determine how many QAs are required in that team.
Yeah.
Okay. So because you already got product and business knowledge, so
Correct.
you got little bit understanding of complexity of that product, right? So you should try thinking of what should be the appropriate dev to QA ratio. Okay.
Ratio.
Correct. Dev to QA ratio, right? Many companies follow different dev to QA ratio, so there is no single standard, right? But what I was following, I can tell you that, right? So I was following roughly 1:3. Basically, there should be one QA for 3 developers, because this was payment gateway, and transactions, basically money movement, is most critical thing, right? So we didn't want to have too many developers versus one QA, otherwise they cannot test everything efficiently. So once we determine how many QAs we require, the next thing, like everyone knows, right? We should uh, define the roles and responsibilities of these people, and then we should start hiring. Okay. When I say define roles and responsibilities, it's like what. So there can be two ways, right? If either you want these people to be segregated into, let's say, only manual team, only automation team, or let's say you want to build a team which don't have this segregation, but everyone does everything. So
Got it.
same
And
person do manual and same person do automation testing. So
got
it's like depending on what you want, you can have either this segregation or no segregation, and based on this, you decide roles and responsibilities, and then start hiring. So because hiring takes time, right?
yeah.
So parallelly, what you can do, you can at least start working on QA processes or release workflows. So let's say if you are using Jira, then Jira workflows and so on. So and try to document them as much as possible so that you get alignment with various stakeholders, especially development. Because development team up to now is working without QA. So first impression any dev have is like, okay, if you add QA, then it will slow that development. Because then developer have to pass to QA and QA will take time, then he will for testing, and then he will raise bugs. So developer have to raise fix bugs, and overall it increases the release
Cycle
cycle.
time. Cycle time. Yeah.
So it's although this is true, right? But you need to make sure that these people, all these people, especially engineering team, are aligned with this approach. And for this, you don't need to just say verbally. You have to you need to make sure you document it properly, and you do multiple sharing sessions to these people, explaining what is the new workflow will look like, how QA will help, and how, let's say, developer will help, what PM will do, and so on. Because like everyone say, quality is not one person's or one team's responsibility. It should be everyone's responsibility.
Correct.
So you should define workflows or processes in a way so that PM is also helping in testing, developer is also doing bits for testing, and of course QA is doing. Yes, overall, this is briefly, I will say, first steps I will do when trying to build a team.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Now, let's say you understood the part, you're starting to hire people, right? Now, what are the steps? What are the qualities or skills you are looking for when hiring QA team members in general?
Okay, so again, it's very different answer for different team, different companies,
100%.
right?
So Mukesh, just to be on this, on just to handle this once and for all, right? This is your experience sharing. there is
Okay.
there is no there is no book to this, right?
Correct.
There
Okay.
is a book. This
So
is your
let me
yeah.
just tell from my
Yeah,
perspective. Okay.
because I'm seeing you have to answer, you're attempting to say that this is my experience. Everybody
Correct.
knows this is your experience sharing. Right? There is the book to this. So yeah.
Okay. Sure. Okay. So basically, like I said, there are two ways to run QA team, and one is like segregated manual and automation team members. Second is single team doing both. So I was doing second, which is single team doing both. So based on my decision, like I want all my people to have knowledge of manual testing, have knowledge of automation testing. Based on this, I was hiring members. Okay, so what are the key things I was looking for? Like I think these are very generic, but still let me try to say them, right. First and foremost thing for any QA hiring is attention to detail, right? Because attention to detail is required for any manual testing or debugging you are trying to do in the system. Then second is analytical skills, like how strong you are in solving problems and all logical thinkings. Third can be what are your communication skills? When I say communication skills, it's not only like Hindi or English, okay? It's like your ability to convince other people to say your point correctly in front of other people, and you are not, let's say, afraid, or you are not, I will use afraid, right? You are not afraid of putting your point in front of all people. And secondly, of course, because my team was in different countries, some people were in India, some people were in Indonesia or Singapore, Vietnam, and Indonesia. So I need English as a key skill as well. Okay, so communication skill was very important. Then collaboration, it's a thing which we cannot judge at the time of interview, but we try to ask candidates questions based on their current team, like how they pass. Let's say they have any problem, then how they go back and try to solve this. Are they going to PM, or let's say are they going to developer, or they just sit idle and just raise to QA lead without putting much efforts from their side. So if people are putting more efforts from their side, then it means they are better in collaboration. So we should hire. We were hiring those kind of people. Then adaptability is also one thing which we were looking for, because all my companies I was working were startups, and in startups, one thing which is constant is change. Okay, so every quarter we were changing either, let's say, product, or either engineering or let's say killing one feature, is start working on another feature, and so on. So there is always lot of I will say changes here and there in startup. So we want people who are open for change. We were not looking for people who are like, no, I want stable life, and I'm assigned to one team, I will just take care of that team, that's it. So that works in, let's say, in big companies, or let's say maybe in service based, but in startups it's pretty hard to be constant in one team or one product.
That is true.
Then lastly, I will say it was, of course, automation. So the criteria we were using was like, we have three things: API, web, and mobile, right? These three automations. So the criteria we were using is like, person we are hiring should have at least understanding or knowledge of two, either API or web or mobile, or mobile or API. As long as a person have at least experience in these two, we were hiring those people. Lastly, which was not very, I will say, mandatory, but we were preferring that person is same from our domain. So our companies, like all my companies I work for, were fintech. So we were targeting all the people who have domain knowledge of fintech. Yeah, so these were briefly the checklists we were using for hiring people.
Got it. Understood. Got it. My next question to you is, I'll take an audience question, right? Because this
Okay.
will help us understand where we are going. Okay. I think we can take this because we're still on the hiring part, right? So this is from Rahul, right? And from a hiring perspective, a lot of things have to be in place before a candidate is hired. The first thing being resume selections. What are the points in an individual resume that makes you go wow, and which ones make you go like this could have been better?
Okay, good question. So first of all, like, definitely before we start hiring, there have to be a lot of things, like we have to create hiring process and so on. So I think I will not go there, because assuming we have initiated the hiring process.
Yeah.
The question is mainly related to resume, right? So my thought is always like looking for sentences or like description person has put against his let's say let's say his experience. For example, he's right now working on, let's say, Aspire. Then what are the things he has mentioned in his resume he is doing? Okay, so there are two type of candidates. One who writes, I build framework from scratch, or I did these framework enhancements, or I automated 1,000 tests, XYZ. And another type of people are like, I have experience in using XPath. I have experience in creating test cases. I have experience in building CSS selectors. So usually these kind of profiles which say I have experience in creating XPaths or creating CSS are the candidates which I usually drop, because it means they don't have much experience. Maybe they have just Google, or they just started, so they are just putting XPath and stuff. While people I was looking for were people who can do frameworks from scratch, or at least have can modify frameworks if required. So on in the resume itself, if they have mentioned keywords or sentences, the things the outcomes they have like the outcomes they have how to say it? Okay, let me revert it. So I usually prefer those people who put what are the results from their work. Okay, instead of just putting I have experience of doing this. So this helped me to find out people from selecting resumes from multiple different candidates. So the people who are putting their experience, I usually don't select them. The people who are putting outcome, I usually select them. This is the criteria I use. I think you are mute.
Yeah, sorry. I think that's a fair point also. I was talking to one of our own team members. I was saying that today the world has moved from showcasing what you can do versus showcasing your pedigree to people, right? Okay, you've cracked this. So I think that's a fair point. Very interesting question from Tripti, which I want to take right now is because we're still hiring, right? Still on the hiring front. How do you balance between hiring experienced professionals and training new talent, especially in the skill set where automation is required? So, what's your balance approach here?
Okay. So this answer depends on at which stage you are hiring. Okay. If you are just at the stage of creating team from scratch, then we should hire experienced folks. Okay. And if you are in middle stage where let's say you already have 3-4 key people or experienced people, then you should go for let's say freshers or let's say even interns. So let me tell you our story from one of my company. So there, the process we were following was that once we have 4 people, once we hired 4 people, then instead of hiring more seniors, we went for interns because of one reason was like to have balanced team. Another reason was also because of cost, that we want to have cost within our budget, right? So what we did, we went to one college and hired 6 interns there, and they were here for 6 months period. And for first, I think 2 months, we were training those people from zero. Like what is testing, what is manual testing, how to do manual testing, how to write test cases, or everything related to QA testing. Okay. And then in second month, we were giving them understanding of how they can do at least web automation. So first 2 months, we basically give them proper training, onboarded them to software testing because they are interns, they don't know anything. And then next 4 months, we judged these 6 people and tries to find out who are the best performers. And out of these best performers, then we convert them to full time. So this is also one of the things which you can also follow depending on stage of hiring. But if you are just starting a team, then I will suggest go for experienced people first instead of just going for freshers.
Got it. Great points. Great point. I agree with this completely in general. I think let me go back to hiring related questions. Not there. So let's go back to some of the peak related questions. Okay. Uh, now, now let's assume for and this will be true in most cases. The dev process will already be set. It's already set, right? Now you have done the groundwork, started hiring people. How do you integrate a freshly made team into a existing dev process? What's the best practices there?
This is a good question because this is also challenge I will say that we face. Okay, because devs and PMs are already working without QA. So from their perspective, they don't need QA, right? Because no one will say they are doing bad job. Okay, so I think first challenge we face whenever we are trying to integrate QA team in existing workflow or existing members is that we have to not only change the development process, but more importantly, the mindset of people.
Correct.
Because they are in a way not very open to change. Okay, and this is true for everyone. No one wants change in a way. Correct. Because whenever you introduce any change, the first reaction is why we should do it. It's already working, so let it work. Okay, so so this is the main point which I shared is like instead of just focusing on integrating team, I mean changing processes or workflows, we should also focus on changing mindset of people. And how we can do it is like basically making sure that they understand what value QA can bring.
Correct.
Okay. So if I go detail by detail, right, like step by step, how you can do it, right?
Correct.
Then first thing, as a QA lead or as a first QA, is like you should understand what is the existing workflow, what is the existing process, how PM developers are working, and who is, let's say if they are doing some testing, then who is doing that testing. Like in my company, when I joined, it was PM who was doing briefly testing before something was sent to production. So first you understand the existing flow, then you align on goals and expectation. It means that you try to define different roles and responsibilities of different parties. Like for example, what PM should do, what developer should do, and what QA should do, and at which stages. So for example, up to now, because there was no QA, so there was no involvement of QA as well in the process. So what you can suggest is that QA should be involved in the early development cycle, which means like they should be included in the sprint planning, or like even like tech spec review, design discussions, so that QAs are involved from day one. Then how second thing can be like how you integrate basically let's say automation in current workflow of development lifecycle. So assuming you also started automation, right? Then one way is you run this automation in silo, which only you knows.
Correct.
What is the value only you knows. Second is you let's say socialize this, or let's say promote this, and try to integrate this in the development workflow itself. Which means as soon as anything is deployed to, let's say, staging, then your tests are running automatically, and then results are also shared in, let's say, if you are using Slack on Slack channel or emails. Yeah. And third thing can be like set clear outcomes. Okay, that if you are saying that I want to integrate QA team in this particular team, then you should explain like what is the benefit QA team can have. So maybe you can set some OKRs, right? That see, right now, let's say production bugs are 100. If we include this, then I expect at least 20% will go down. Okay. And then you have to then start tracking and sort of, right? So after setting these clear outcomes, then second thing is, not second, but yeah, next thing is like you make sure that people start following this. So what you have to do, you have to monitor, like are QAs included in early cycle? Are they part of stand-ups? Are they included in random ad hoc meetings and so on? And if they are not, then again try to share this process again and again in public channels, so that everyone is aware they are not missing QAs. Because in early days, what happens that if we just say one time that QA is there, people will remember for, let's say, 5-7 days, then again they forgot. We have to keep repeating things that people make to make sure that people are aware that QA is important and they are being integrated. So make sure you monitor, and also second is do retrospective, so that you can adjust. So it's not that whatever you decide is always final, because there is no perfect rule for this. Every team, every company have different expectations, different workflows. So on first draft, you shared the expectation, then you monitor it, and then do retrospective. Take feedbacks from QA team, take feedbacks from, let's say, PM, developers, what they feel about this this overall process. And then based on these feedbacks, try to adjust. So this is like a cycle which you have to follow at least, I will say, 1 or 2 months. And then your QA team will be properly integrated in the existing team or existing workflows.
God, I think thank you for the detailed answer, Mukesh. It's quite helpful in that sense. Uh, There are some questions which I wanted to. Oh, okay, because we were talking collaboration again. This is a great question from Tripti, which I want to take. Is how do you establish and maintain a strong quality culture within a new formed QA? Of course, you try to do this at hiring and a bunch of other places, right? But still, teams will evolve. They say teams have multiple stages:
Mhm.
forming, storming, norming, performing. You form a team, they'll storm together, and they'll come to normalization, and they'll start to perform.
Right.
Within the stage, how do you build a strong quality culture, and what strategies do you use to ensure effective collaboration, especially in the dev team?
Okay. So basically, if so, can I see that question again? Sorry.
Sure, sure, sure. Just
Let's keep that in the screen so that I don't miss. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
So assuming we are answering this when we already have established team. Okay. And now we want to make sure that there is strong quality and people are not, let's say, lenient, and they are just not there for the sake of having there. They should be making sure that quality is improving day by day. So what I do is I put tracking and matrices at every place. Okay, so I usually how we do in current companies, like we set OKRs in terms of quality, in terms of feature delivery, and in terms of improvements on quarter level. So, for example, because we are talking about only quality, right? So, examples can be like how many production bugs, let's say, we are slipping. Second is how many internal bugs we are finding. Internal bugs. When I say internal bugs, it is like if you are working on any new feature, right? So how many bugs we recorded internally while doing feature testing when it's not live on production. This number is very important. Of course, production numbers is important, but this numbers gives you full picture. So let's say consider two cases. There are two QAs, or let's say there are two teams. One team is finding, let's say, 100 bugs on internal environment, while second team is finding only, let's say, 10, 15 bugs in a month. Okay, and on production, both teams have same number of bugs. Okay, then just by looking at production data, you can say, okay, both teams are bad, or both teams are bad performing.
Correct.
But if you see this internal number, then you will find out maybe team one, who is finding 100 issues, have more better QAs, or the QA is doing good job, because internally he is able to at least stop 100 bugs. Okay, so this metrics help you to understand or differentiate between different people, and also gives you insights about team performance. So there can be two ways, right? One is like if talking about second person who got only 15 bugs, there can be two reasons. One, the developers in that team are very strong, they don't put any bugs. Okay, second can be QA in that team is very weak, which I just assume, right? So these matrices, this data gives you insight, and based on this data, you can go and deep dive, try to understand what is the real situation. Is this developer's problem? Is it QA problem? So putting these matrices in place, we are able to basically make sure that our quality is increasing day by day. Okay, it's not that it's there. We have QA team, but we don't know what their outcome is. And this is my philosophy is any metrics you need should be automated. Okay, you should not be going and writing queries or putting data in Excel sheets. So for the same, I have also created one dashboard which I call quality dashboard.
Okay.
There we have all the things in place. So we get all the matrices, like what is number of internal bugs, what is number of production bugs, how much automation is done in last 1 week or last 1 month by X members, what is the pass percentage, what is the stability, pass percentage means stability, and what is the time taken to execute. Okay, so all these things are present in dashboard. I will go and see there, and then I will use this data to basically pinpoint teams and members, and then doing one-on-ones or group calls to understand what is the problem.
Got it.
And based on this discussion, then we will be able to identify action items. Maybe let's say we've identified team one. A team one have some problem, but when I deep dive, it turns out that one QA is having some personal issues and he's not able to focus. So in that sense, I get the information. Then what I can do, either I can add one more person there, or I can ask his, let's say, his fellow member to support further, because that person is having personal issues. So when I have data, I can take these sort of decisions. I can go and pinpoint people, and I can overall this can help us to improve quality. Okay, this is first stage. Now second stage is, let's say I have these people, and now after, let's say, 1 year, right? Everyone is doing good job and blah blah blah. Then what they can feel is like there is no. Some people may feel that there is no clarity of how they can grow. Okay, like, okay, I'm right now senior QA. How I can grow further? So for this, second thing which I do is make sure we have clear, defined growth framework.
Got it.
I call it growth framework, but what it typically contains is like detailed description on roles and responsibilities of that person on that level. Okay, and this is created for all the levels across QA, starting from junior QA up to QA director, so that we have understanding of every person's roles and responsibilities, and they also have understanding what is expected from them. Okay, and if they want promotion, then they have guide. Okay,
got it.
So in my team, it's not me who decide promotion, it's my members, that they have this checklist. Once they fill this checklist, they can come to me that I have already filled this checklist, this is the data, I am ready for promotion. So when we are able to provide people growth chances, or I will say transparency on growth, then this will also keep people motivated and they will work efficiently.
Got it. Understood. Mukesh, there are a lot of questions, audience and pre-collected also. So let's quickly now do answers to this. Okay. My next question is around I think communication, collaboration we have discussed, tools and knowledge we can take later. Okay. Now let's say we are hiring. We have estimated basis on multiple products. We have started hiring, but hiring will only happen in a staggered manner, right? You can't. All 50 people can't be joining on the same day. It will happen slowly, right? So how do you prioritize testing efforts when the team is just building up? It's still not there. It's building up. How do you prioritize testing efforts then?
Okay, so I think I briefly also covered it in the starting, that I said that instead of trying to work on everything, try to pinpoint one team, one module first. So let's say you have only 2 people, 1 people, depending on how many people you have right now, because you are still hiring, right? So first thing for you is like try to identify which are critical modules and try to pick them as first. Don't pick all of them at second. And for picking a critical team, you should use various factors. One of them can be production bugs, like what customers are facing, what feedbacks they are giving to us. Okay, so if a feature is critical and it has a lot of bugs, then you should pick those. Instead, if any feature is not that critical, then even if that have bugs, it can live with, because it's not that critical. It will not affect our core business. So once you identify critical team, then you should start working in this team. Now talking even inside this one team, there can be possibility that even within this one module, there are, let's say, hundreds of flows. Okay. So next thing for you is to do priority-based testing. What is priority-based testing is like you identify all the flows you have, then you mark them critical, then high, then low, and so on. Basically like P0, P1, P2, P3. And then to start with, you just start executing P0 test cases instead of executing all. And let's say if you have extra time, then you can cover P1 as well. Okay. Yeah. So depending on how much bandwidth you have, you go with P0, P1 segregation. And assuming you don't have enough time, then last option you can do is exploratory testing. So for things which you cannot test based on whole checklist, then just do 30 minutes of exploratory testing, which is very important. So you do exploratory testing of that feature from your end user perspective, how you will use, so that at least you are covering happy flows on demand without going with detailed checklist, because it will take time. And lastly, if you are basically let's say 2-3 people, then I believe you might have already started working on automation and so on. If not, then start working on it, because automation can help you to save time in longer run, and it will also give you confidence when you will have your all regression tests running and executing automatically. And as we are hiring, so gradually keep increasing your scope as number of people are joining.
Understood. Thank you for that. My next question is, how do we... Yeah, so let's take a few audience questions now, and I think we can end with pre-collected questions right now. Okay, now this is a common question which is now coming, and we'll want to pick your brain here. This is from Tanmay, who's has had a dream. Have you faced QA cannibalizing problem from the management, where they say that we don't require QAs anymore and everyone should pivot towards development, devs to test everything and stuff like that? If yes, what's the perspective to this shift in the industry trend? That's first question. And loosely related question is not closely related, but loosely related is, how do you put the QA teams ahead of other teams in terms of quality, budget, and what challenges do you face with stakeholders as a QA leader? So both questions, protecting your team's work, pride, and requirement in general. How do you manage
Okay.
this?
Okay, so basically, to be exact, I have not faced that situation up to now. That my leadership is saying that QA is not required. So maybe I'm right now positive on this. But let's say let me still try to answer it. Okay, that what if your leadership is saying that they don't want QAs, they want
Yeah, something like
everyone
that.
to either move to development or developers should do QA testing. Okay, so for me, from my perspective, this will be coming when leadership is not aware of what value QA is bringing.
Correct.
Okay, so maybe as a QA head, I am not able to project positive things my team is doing. Okay, so that is also that is why I was focusing on OKRs and metrics,
Correct.
quality metrics, right? When you have OKRs and metrics to present, then you can always go and explain to your leadership that these are the things we are doing every quarter, every 6 months, every year, and whatever, and these are the outcomes. So let's say you can say we are one item can be in the OKR, like automate 100 test cases. Then outcome of that will be that we are expecting 10% of production bugs will be going down, or let's say we are expecting 10% of time will be saved. So as long as I'm able to project basically benefits my team is bringing, and I am able to convince them with the help of data. Okay, so if you are just going and doing theoretical answers or theoretical discussions without backing with data, they will not accept. But when you have data to present, then they have no choice but to accept. Okay, so I will say if you are facing such situation, try to list down what are the things, what is the value your team is providing to overall organization, and try to provide this visibility, let's say in dashboards and in different portals, so that this is visible to all the people. Okay, it's not just about your direct manager, even his his manager, or let's say overall leadership should be aware what value we are bringing. So I think as long as we have this visibility, I will say there will be less chances that people will not want QA. Okay, but in worst case, they say still we don't want QAs. Then maybe you have to ask why. Okay, maybe you are not aware why they are doing this, right? So you have to ask why, and based on their answer, let's say one of the answer can be cost. Okay, if the one of the answer is cost, then you should and then you should be able to propose, let's say right now my cost is 100. What if I reduce it, let's say 20%, 30%. Is that possible? So instead of going from 100 to 0, try to negotiate there.
Got
Okay,
it.
that what if I reduce X%? Because if you do just 0, then again our quality will be like bad and so on. So try to negotiate, and here comes your communication skills,
Yeah, yeah.
negotiation skills, which I was talking. That you should be able to convince people what you want, and you should be able to convey your point, your perspective to them. So I think this might help you, but because I have not seen this, so maybe this might not make sense to you if this is not the right answer.
Got it. I think manual automation we have done. One question from Rahul is we have talked a lot about building talent right now. Now, building a team is a constant process. It's not just a one-time thing, right? And one of the key part which will come is retaining talent. How do you what's the challenge in retaining talent, and how do you come about it?
Okay. So personally, I feel people leave when they don't have clarity.
Yeah,
Like they don't know what they are doing, why they are doing, and what growth perspective, growth opportunities they have in this company. Okay.
yeah,
So from growth perspective, I already answered previously. Like we should have proper growth framework so that
yeah.
people are aware, they are a full transparency, and they know what is next to them and up to how many levels they can go. Okay. So like I said, in my organization, I have built growth framework starting from Q engineer up to Q director. So if you are, let's say, senior Q engineer, you can go to QA lead, from QA lead to Q manager, from Q manager to, let's say, senior manager, and then to Q director. So as long as you have this visibility and clear process and guidelines, without any politics, I will say, then growth will not be concerned for you in,
Hmm.
let's say, in my team or my company. Okay. So uh, if this is directly coming from growth perspective, then I'm sorted. It's not there. Okay. And second can be uh, uh, for retention, right? Second can be people are not getting enough money. Okay. Like suppose we hired someone, and after 1 year he got some increment, right? Now this increment sometimes acts as a trigger point to people to resign. That, oh, I was expecting X percentage, but this is Y, so I don't think this is enough for me, so I want to go, right?
Hmm.
So as a let's say, I'm assuming you are let's say head of QA director, right? So all the leaders have power, all the leaders have numbers
Hmm.
that they can play around. Okay. So try to sort your members. Let's say if you have 10 members, 20 members, try to sort your members from top performer to bottom performer. Okay. And let's say average increment company is giving to you is 6%, assuming, right? Then instead of giving 6% to all, try to give, let's say, 10 or 15% to top performer, and let's say 2 or 3% to let's say less than normal or less than average. And who is not performing, he should get zero increment. Okay. Because you, at the end, what you want is you want to retain your top performers and let go non-performers, right? So you can utilize this appraisal cycle for this. So instead of giving all same numbers to people, stack rank people and give increment accordingly. So this can help to retain them.
Got understood. Let's take few more questions before we end this. Okay. What are the challenges you have faced in your career while building a QA team? Of course, you might have faced, and how did you handle those challenges from your experience?
Okay, I think most of the things already answered on this, but let me briefly cover it. Okay, so first thing which I said was because you are first, there was no QA team, so it's about convincing people and changing mindset of stakeholders, that why QA is important and what value QA brings. Okay, so a challenge can be if I go in detail, right, is like because devs and PMs were working without you. So if QA is coming, then developer can say that the release cycle will be delayed, so we don't need QA, right? So this is one of the challenge usually coming in our side is like friction from dev team, because it will affect release timelines, delivery timelines. Second thing is again there is a lot of work to do. So from where I should start? So for this, the answer is prioritize your modules, prioritize your features, and start from one or two features instead of going for all of them. Then, of course, another challenge can be like hiring, because hiring right candidate takes again a lot of time, right? So to make sure that you are hiring right candidate, you have to make sure your hiring process is correct. Okay, so I have seen in some companies people don't focus on hiring process. uh, Random uh, panel is asking random questions, and there is no basically properly set process like what we should ask in first round, what we should check for second round, and so on. So you don't do this mistake. You should have clear cut hiring process, like what should be like what people should be asking in phone screening round, what should people should be asking, let's say, in code pairing round. What are that some of the example questions? Good to give some example questions to your panels. Good to have some Excel sheets or some documents internally, so that everyone is aware of the templates. Okay, so yeah, this is one the challenge which I was saying, right? Hiring right talent is time taking. Okay, and then overall, because you are still convincing people, so updating workflows, updating processes, and then doing a lot of communication, collaboration, all these things are required again and again. So sometimes this looks frustrating, like why people are not agreeing in the first meeting itself, why it's taking multiple meetings and so on. But because uh, this is a big change, adding QA team or is big change. So uh, it will take time to convince people and align people. So these are some of the challenges which we discuss, and I just summarize right now. You are mute again.
I think I can take the last question right now. I have figured out this question. Okay. Uh, Now, in brief, if you want to, okay, let me take this audience question. That will help. Yeah. So, how to work with empathy as well as timelines? Sometimes people manager face this issue where peers think micromanagement is there.
Okay. Yeah. So micromanagement and management, sometimes there is very thin line. So micromanagement, from my perspective, is when you are asking people almost 3 times a day what they are doing, why it's taking time, and so on. Okay, management is when people tell you something and you trust them. Micromanagement is something when people tell you and you don't trust them, so you go and again talk about them, talk and ask questions around it. So I will say try to do management, not micromanagement, because micromanagement will only frustrate people and it will not have any positive impact on longer run. So instead of going and asking any random question about status update to people, I will say try to do as a manager by yourself. Try to have dashboards. Let's say if you are talking about, let's say, their feature delivery work, right? Then I believe they are working on Jira, right? So you can go and directly check the Jira status. Or if they are executing test cases, right? If they are using Excel sheet, then you can go and check the status in Excel sheet. If you are using, let's say, test failure test runs, then you can directly go and check in test runs and test it. So as long as you are not going to the person and finger pointing him, he will not feel like micromanagement. Okay, and that is the right way, that you should be uh, uh, capable enough to track what your people are doing without going and disturbing them.
Got
Okay, and you should be able to trust them. Okay, so there should be basically trust in your team. That what you are saying, your team members should trust you. What they are saying, you should trust them. Okay. There will be some cases where one person is taking advantage of it. Okay. But when you have quality metrics and dashboards around, then you can filter out such people. But uh, uh, broad level, I will say trust is important. And when you have trust, then people sometimes try to basically, let's say, I will say, go extra mile. They sees, okay, this is one of the requests. Okay, it's fine. I will do up to, let's say, I will extend 1 hour extra for this special task, and I will do it because this is important for my manager. But if you are just doing micromanagement, and your member is saying it's micromanagement, then he might make 100 of excuses. Okay, and it will make the things worse. So yeah, try to avoid micromanagement as much as possible. Keep your thin line within yourself, like what I should ask. Basically, you should think from this perspective. If I ask this question to my team member, what he will feel to understand this, assume that same question is being asked to you, and 3 times a day, how you will feel. Okay. So as long as you feel positive, go and ask the same question to your member. But if you feel same question asked to you, you will feel negative, then you should not ask that question to your member. That's it, Ashutosh.
Yeah, got it, Mukesh. I think we can. Thank you, Mukesh, for doing this, and thank you for being so authentic about your experience in general. And it's great to know from experience how to build such strong QA teams and how to be very objective in your measuring methodology in general, and yet have empathy for people. So, and thank you everyone for joining in. It must have been a hectic day for you. So,
Yep. I will say thank you for inviting me, and thank you for all the audience to join and listen to me. Please do share the feedback so that I can also improve, because no one is perfect.
Yeah. So thank you so much, and we'll see you on the future events. Thank you, Mukesh, and thank you.
Thank you. Bye.